All right, and an inquiry into the Liberal government's use of the Emergencies Act last winter during the convoy protests, that is set to kick off today. Joined now by CityNews Parliament Hill Bureau Chief Cormac Mac Sweeney with what we can expect. Good morning, Cormac.
Good morning, Mel.
Okay, first, before we move forward, we've got to look backward. Take us back to why this act was used to begin with, or why the federal government decided it was needed.
Well, of course, we had 3 weeks here in Ottawa in January and February where basically the downtown core was occupied by a lot of trucks and a lot of people who were honking their horns nonstop, just taking over the streets, and police didn't seem to be doing much about it, which led to a lot of criticism for the reaction. And it got to the point where the federal government decided that it had to invoke the Emergencies Act for the first time ever. I will point out, though, the Emergencies Act only dates back to the 80s, but nonetheless, it was the first time it's ever been used. Not even in the pandemic did they trigger this act, but they did. They said it was needed to restore order, to clear out the protesters, not just there, but as well as some demonstrations that were blocking border crossings. And so that's the reason the government gave, that it got to the point where officials couldn't handle the situation and they needed this to give extra powers to police to clear this out. And of course, there's been a lot of criticisms from critics who say that it was overstepping. And now, as a part of the act, it's mandated they have to have a public inquiry, and that's what we're starting today.
I know we spoke with you several times during that, Cormac, and you spoke to it both with what your coverage looked like, but also as a resident of Ottawa, right? Like what was happening within the streets. So let's talk us through what the next, 6 weeks is going to look like when it comes to witness accounts, testimony, evidence. What is the process?
It is going to be a packed 6-week agenda. We have 65 different people as potential witnesses. We may not get to all of them, but you can be sure that people like the Prime Minister, cabinet ministers will be called, leaders of the convoy protest. I think all of them who are on that witness list have been facing charges in some form or another for their involvement in this. We're also going to be hearing from police officials, including the current and former Ottawa police chiefs. So it's going to be a packed agenda. Today, we're just going to be hearing from the commissioner, who's Justice Paul Rouleau. He's a justice who has served in several different provinces and territories, and he's going to be giving this opening statement as well. We might hear from counsel of the commission to try and give some presentations about the evidence that's going to be put forward. But we're not only going to be hearing testimony from these witnesses, we're going to be getting documents from the federal government, from the municipal government, that should shed a lot of light as to what happened in terms of the city's response here in Ottawa and the collapse that happened in dealing with this situation, and what the conversations were between different levels of government and law enforcement to try and lead up to the point of the Emergencies Act being invoked.
Okay, so needless to say, there is a lot to wade through when it comes to both personnel and documents. But what at the end of this 6-week period is expected to happen? Now, let's say it's found that this act was invoked and it shouldn't have been. What are the repercussions?
Well, I mean, there will be a lot of public shaming, but the whole point of this in terms of the public inquiry is to just try and get answers. So there won't be any repercussions to say like a fine or something for the federal government. But there will be pressure if it is found that the government shouldn't have invoked the act, or that it didn't have meet the legal threshold to do this. Then that could cause problems and a lot of questions for the Trudeau government. It is, confident that it did the right thing and it met the threshold. So we'll have to wait and see. But there will be recommendations that come out of this as well. So not only will Justice Rouleau be looking over what happened in the lead up to it, whether the measures that were used properly, whether the government was justified in invoking the Emergencies Act, but he will also say what needs to happen moving forward. And so he may give recommendations such as legislative changes to the Emergencies Act to possibly put in place better safeguards or more checks and balances on the government, or he may say everything was fine, everything went well, no recommendations here. But it's hard to think that anybody, independent observers who look into these sorts of things, whether it be, the Auditor General or somebody, they always have recommendations. So we can expect some recommendations to come out of this. But what those recommendations are remains to be seen. That final report will be submitted to the government February 6th. It'll have a chance to prepare a response. And then on February 20th, it will be submitted to the House of Commons. And that's when Canadians will get to see the results.
I think a lot of people looking for some answers here either way. Cormac, as always, appreciate your time. And personally, I just wanted to say thank you so much for always joining us live and providing insight and breaking things down for our viewers. You're awesome.
And I want to say you're amazing. I'm going to miss you so much. I'm going to miss these chats
Cormac.
with you. And I wish you all the best. Josh is lucky to have a mom like you.
You are the sweetest. Okay, road trip to Ottawa. We are going to Ottawa. I'll see you soon, Cormac. Take care of yourself.
I'll see you then.
Thank you.
Bye.